everybody. Thank you for joining us. This will be the last of our breakout sessions now in Young Learners. So for those of you who have already been to some of our Young Learners sessions today, apologies, you would have already heard me introducing myself, but for those of you who are joining us for the first time over at Young Learners, my name is Stacey. I am a marketing executive here at Trinity College London, and I'm working in the language department. So today we'll go through our last session now with our presenter, Maria Luz Etchegaray, who is here. Maria Luz, are you here?
Yes, here I am.
Thank you. So just a bit of background for you. So Maria Luz is an English teacher, and she has over 20 years of experience based out in Buenos Aires in Argentina, and she excels in both primary and secondary education. She has a master's degree in education as well, and prioritizes her students' development and her own ongoing learning. And she also has over 6 years of leadership experience. So thank you, Maria Luz, for joining us. So today, as you will see, we do have a chat box at the bottom. So if everyone feel free to share your thoughts and ideas and comments as Maria Luz goes through her presentation. And then next to that, there's a Q&A box. So if you could please put your questions for the end of the session in there, just so they don't get lost in the chat. And then I'll come back to see you again when it's time to go through the questions. So I'll pass you over to our presenter now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that introduction. Welcome, everybody. I'm Maria Luz Etchegaray, and I'm really, really happy to be here with you sharing this session. This code here will take you to my LinkedIn profile, where you can learn a bit more about my professional life. So I would like to share a bit more about my personal one. This is my family. You've got here my husband, Paco, and my two little daughters, Emily and Helen. They are 3 and 1 years old. And I wanted to start with this because I really think it's really essential for project-based learning. Even though I have many, many years of experience teaching, researching, and learning, I could really grasp the concept of project-based learning with my two little girls here that are really looking at the real world problems we've got around, and observing them has helped me in my insight to this project-based learning we're going to share today. And we carry out a lot of projects along our lives, and even on a single day. So today, I wanted to ask you, how many projects are you carrying out today? Maybe there in the chat box, you can share how many or what is it that you are going on or carrying out today. And even this year, because we are carrying out lots of personal and professional projects every year in our lives. So maybe you can share a bit how many, and a keyword expressing what projects you are carrying out now in your life. Great. Okay, we've got lots of lessons, private students, schools, or classes they're going on. Great. And also online lessons or online courses that are really challenging too. Great, thank you for sharing. Okay, so Let's see. So let's see now. Let's go into project-based learning. Students need to see the purpose of the activities that we are carrying out in class. They need to get engaged and involved in whatever we are doing. Project-based learning, as you may know, is a teaching method that involves students and helps them by actively engaging them in real-world and meaningful projects. These projects start with a challenge, a question, or a problem that really hooks them, and they end with a final product after a process of inquiry. So I thought of these 4 key strategies to enhance this approach, boosting our teaching and raising students' motivation. So for this, I would like to share 2 stories today, a real one and a fiction one, so that then we can reflect on how we go through these 4 steps that you can see here. Trigger wonder first, then promote do-it-yourself culture, question students, and finally go for action. This first story is about a little frog. So, are you ready for it? Once upon a time, there was a tiny little tadpole inside one pond in Buenos Aires Botanic Garden. It was swimming happily until a teacher caught it with a net and placed it in a food container to take it to its new home. Soon, it was surrounded by 6-year-old kids, pointing, gasping, and saying, "Look, seashells! Wow, water plants!" Suddenly, somebody said, "Hole!" Philip had spotted it hiding behind the plants. The tadpole became part of the class. Students would observe its growing every day. Amy suggested giving it a name, and that's how this tadpole became Flash. It was quite a good swimmer, that little guy. And after some days, kids saw 2 legs at the back, and then 2 at the front. And finally, there it was, stuck on the glass. "What do you think it might need?" asked the teacher. "Food," said Mary. But this teacher got really surprised when Peter stated, "Flash needs freedom. It should go back to the Botanic Garden." He was sure this was the only possibility. Flash had become, the class pet. So setting it free was not that easy for them. Some kids were really, really scared. They were afraid it might get lost or it could go hungry. And then they decided to go for help and ask that Botanic Garden keeper there to help Flash. Students wrote letters to the Botanic Garden keeper and asked him to take care of Flash. They wrote beautiful letters explaining how Flash was a tadpole and their teacher caught it. And they also explained the whole process, how it became a frog. And they even made wedding plans for him. So Flash didn't become a prince, as in fairy tales, but he did have its happy ending at the end. And that's the end of this first story. So, how did this teacher trigger wonder? Let's look at these 4 strategies. How did she hook students? She placed the fish tank on the table and waited for that, wow, tadpole. Introducing something new is always a way of changing the mood. This element of surprise makes a difference. It could be a fish tank, or a box with something to guess or to observe. Not only will this element of surprise make the experience more memorable for students, but it will also hook them and get them really engaged. Now, the teacher placed that fish tank on the table and waited. She waited for students to observe and discover by themselves. Instead of telling them, for instance, okay, we're going to observe this tadpole, it's going to become a frog, or we've got here a tadpole to keep a record of its growing. She waited and let them observe, discover. This arouses curiosity. Think about it yourself. What would you prefer? Would you prefer listening to somebody or really proving something out with an experiment or an experience? Think about little toddlers, as I told you at the very beginning. What would he like to do? I can hear my 3-year-old girl saying, oh, I'll do it on my own, all the time. This is the daily observation grid my students completed every day during this project. Some other activities can be done to foster this do-it-yourself culture that we are talking about. You can choose maybe a teacher of a day or give them some simple tasks so that they can do them in their own way or in an autonomous way. But then, if we promote this do-it-yourself culture, how can we guide this learning process? We've got a great ally here, questions. Questions are really important to set the path. If we've got our objective in mind, we should ask good open questions to set that path. Remember, these questions help our students to develop their thinking skills, and they help them in their metacognition processes as well. But then we get to other questions that happened throughout the process. What can you see? What does it need? What should we do? How can we help this little frog? How can we help others? What do you think? How did you get to that conclusion? What did you learn today? Why did you do that? All these questions are asked in my class every day. And when I start planning a project, I think carefully which questions I'm going to ask throughout the process to guide and lead the students. It is very, very important because they help us follow our path, our learning path. And as we have already mentioned, the final product of our projects is also an essential part of this process. In this story, setting the frog free was a must. It was suggested by one of the students, and there was no other choice for that teacher. And in a way, it was a very powerful action that students took. Now, they set it free. And when Flash went back home to the botanic garden and the letters were delivered to the botanic garden keeper, the reflection went on. And those teachers' questions helped students to reflect on the importance of taking care of the environment. Where is Flash going to live? Okay, so how is this important, or how important it is that we take care of water, of our Earth, our planet? And that is how another action appeared. And students also held a water campaign so that everybody saved water. Not only that those year one students or those first form kids, but also this the community at school started taking care of water and using it really consciously. So, real-world problems are always into interdisciplinary ones. We don't find a science activity or an art activity that is not connected. We always connect them all the time. These are some of the activities that were performed during this project. Many of them were mentioned throughout in the story. But there were some others. For instance, during the IT lessons, they prepare these posters for the water campaign and many other things. But the important thing is that they were all connected, and we went from science to art, from art to language, and kids thought of a real world problem. This project was carried out by me in a first form here in Buenos Aires. And this was the first story I wanted to share, but I also mentioned a second story that is a fiction one. And I would like to share a second project, a fifth form project that we are now developing at school. This is a project that is not being thought of or performed by me, but is inspired by this story, The Little Prince, a very well-known story. I'm sure you've heard about it, and it's a really inspiring one. So this is leading the What Can We Learn from a Journey project we are developing. This is the team, our fifth form team at school that has thought of this project and is developing. Miss Victoria Bondanza, Miss Azul Mandarano, and Miss Catalina Novaro, our fifth form teachers, started this school year, bringing a suitcase, and they asked students, what do we need to start a journey? We are starting here our fifth form journey. What tools have you brought? What did you learn last year in fourth form or in previous years, and you think it's important and you might need for this fifth form journey? And this is how the whole path started. And they connected the different subjects again. The science topics that should be dealt with during this fifth form school year, all the universe topics, also the writing, language, and literature topics, including The Little Prince, journal writing, science fiction, and of course, teaching simple past tense. But apart from all these and through all these subjects, we also worked a lot, we are working a lot on personal development and their inner journey, their personal journey through this learning process. So, here you've got the suitcase with many of the things they say they might need for this fifth form. And this kick help them start thinking about their own learning process and their self-assessment. During the second step, they started writing, and they thought of different trips and different journeys and travelers. They read, as you can see, many different examples of journals that famous people wrote and different travelers did to record their trips. And of course, after all these examples, after all these guides, they wrote their own piece. They wrote their own piece for themselves and for some characters. They also imagined they were one of the characters of the story, and they wrote a journal, a piece of writing. But they also connected this with the science topics, and they reflected on how important it is to guide yourselves and have some guidance with stars, for instance. And that's how the different disciplines, the different subjects were connected. And they were coming and going from writing, from language to science. But always taking into account their personal development process. They keep, as you can see, a self-assessment sheet that that students complete every week. They write what they enjoyed, what they learned, if they have any questions or doubts. And also they say if they need something, they express how teachers can help them. Apart from this self-assessment they keep every day, this is an online sheet that they can complete and that they complete on Google Classroom every week. They also developed and thought of their own planets. They had some time to think about themselves, about their different characteristics, their traits, and they express that artistically, as you can see here, showing in different ways who they are. They became a planet, and if they were a planet, what that will include, what things you would show, what things you will find there. But this was the first step, looking at themselves, at their own person, at their own planet. But then there was a second step that was creating their team planet, the fifth form planet, where everybody had something to share, to add, and as everybody is part of it, they built this planet all together. And they connected this with the Little Prince. They thought a lot about the rose, the Little Princess rose, and how important or how unique that rose is for the Little Prince, and what things it's got in common with other roses. So she is part of a team, of a group, but she's unique at the same time. And that is something they are working on with all their students. But then there was also some writing process that took place. From this dialogue, the first meeting between the pilot and the boy in the Little Prince novel, they thought of taking or having an encounter with an alien. And students created their own dialogues. They wrote them down and they acted out that in class. They, of course, had or got inspired by this dialogue between the pilot and the boy, but they also had some other texts like this one, this poem by David Harmer, Alien in Exchange, where they thought of this encounter and what questions might bring and how it would be. And after reading all these pieces, they created their own dialogue, their own piece. Now, there was, of course, a final project or a final product, sorry. That is this universe presentation where students showed and expressed everything they have learned throughout the process. And I'm sharing here 2 different tools these teachers prepared and used with students. An oral presentation rubric that they got before the activity. And this self-assessment rubric was very important because it set the expectations that these teachers had, what they were going to look at when presentations were taking place, and what exactly students had to accomplish. And then, of course, as an end of project reflection, they wrote 5 things they learned, 4 things that were really interesting for them, 3 things that they enjoyed during this process, 2 things that were really challenging for them, and 1 thing they are proud of. Now, let's think about the 4 must-dos, these 4 strategies that we thought of or we identified in the first story. Let's see them here in this second project as a second example. These teachers really triggered wonder from the very beginning. They brought that suitcase that was something surprising for them, and that really aroused their curiosity. They wanted to know more about this. What is this about? And of course, it helped them develop and start and kick this project. They also promoted this do-it-yourself culture all the time. Rubrics and of course checklists, all these self-assessment tools were key to this, but also all the activities that were thought of, all the different products that were done throughout the process, promoted this autonomy in students. They used questions. They've got a main question that guided the whole project. What can we learn from a journey? And that helped them go back to their objective all the time. But they also used them to make them reflect, as we said, to foster metacognition skills, and to guide their production. They used questions when correcting, when giving feedback to students that wrote different science fiction stories or journals. Questions guided them to improve those pieces, guided them to improve their learning and their processes. And the final products that we could see there, of course, this universe presentation that was kind of the science, let's say, or yes, more science-based final product was really important for them to show what they've learned, to close the whole project. But also the little actions that were done, and the different actions that they are taking after reflecting on their own personal planet and their team during this 5th form journey that they started at the very beginning of the year. This, even though this project is taking place during the first part of the year now. And there are other projects that are coming for these fifth formers. The end of this project is coming at the end of the school year too. And they are going to get that suitcase again and reflect on the whole path, on the whole journey, and go back to it, adding the new tools, the new skills, the new things that they have learned and they have acquired throughout the process. So here we've got two different things, two different grades, first form, fifth form, and there you can see the 4 key strategies. Yes, these 4 key strategies: trigger wonder, promote do-it-yourself culture, question students, and go for action in both. So I have come to the conclusion that if I trigger wonder with a real world challenge or a real world problem, and I encourage students to stay active during the process, and that is done and performed by making the right questions as teachers to guide them through that process. If this happens and I encourage their action, their autonomy, they end up going for action and taking responsibility for this, getting really, really involved. So when I involve students, we all learn a lot throughout the process. So I don't know if you have any questions that you would like to ask or anything to share.
Yeah, thank you for that. That was great. Thank you for that. I really appreciated it. We're just going to go through some questions now. Veronica has asked, how many of the English language, how much of the English language can we use in the case for younger learners in a Spanish-speaking group?
Nice question, because as I told you, I shared here a first form project and a fifth form project. Of course, the products are completely different because their level of English is completely different. And it really depends on the school that you are working at and the group that you are delivering the lessons and where you are delivering the lessons. But I really, really believe that even though their level might be basic or they might be starting to learn this new language, they can really develop a project. I mean, they can really work with the different subjects and connect all these. Probably at the very beginning, their production will be in Spanish, and then it will start getting in what we called Spanglish, and we'll start having some words and in English. And little by little, it will become fully English or a complete English production. But everything can be done and delivered in English. And that is the first step, that they've got all this input in the foreign language, in the second language, so that they can start observing. If they are very little, they will observe and get a lot. So that's very important. And then little by little, their production, their language production will be, of course, enlarged and more complex and completely in English. But there are other actions that we can take that maybe they don't take the language, or that could be in a way possible without with this Spanglish thing.
Great, thank you. Just while waiting if there's any more questions, because I actually had a couple of questions from observing your presentation. How would you go about sort of starting to plan a project?
I think that the starting point should be the end. What is it that we expect students, or we want students to achieve? So if you want them to get, or your goal is to achieve certain language contents or skills, and different science, for instance, contents, what you need to do is, okay, getting that in mind, that objective, that goal, okay, how is it that we are going to get there? And start asking yourself, okay, what steps do I need to get and to go through to achieve this? And little by little, in a way, I go from the end to the very beginning. And then I think it's very important after that to have both the beginning and the end, this first step, this wonder stage, as I call it, and this final product at the end. I think that is the key, an essential thing that you should take into account. After maybe you've got the whole project, go back, that's my suggestion, go back to that beginning and that end, because the beginning is when you hook them, and you will engage them there. And the final production is where you need to get, and where you will see that your goals have been achieved.
Oh, great, thank you. That's good advice. But I'm wondering, with these projects, when you're implementing them, you can have a great plan, but do you ever come across any difficulties when you're actually implementing the projects?
Of course. I think that one of the difficulties we face at school is time. Planning these projects need a lot of time, of course. But it also means sometimes, for instance, in upper grades, you've got different teachers for different subjects. That happens here in Argentina a lot. And getting together with the whole team, here I shared 3 teachers, but this is only the English staff. But we also have an art teacher and a drama teacher, and different teachers that can and that should be part of these projects. So getting the time to get together and to plan together might be a difficulty, but I think that it's possible. We've got now lots of in a way, lots of tools with the internet, with social media, and many things can be done collaboratively in these ways without being all at the same time together in a room. So I think that's easier now.
Okay, great, thank you. I think that's the end of our questions. So I think it's a good place to wrap up. We do have a little short break now, and then we'll be going into our second plenary of the day, which is creating an emergent language culture in a teaching team. And that's presented by Danny Norrington Davis and Richard Chin. So make sure to catch that. But thank you, Maria. Thank you so much for our presentation. That was great. I can see in the chat that so many of you enjoyed it as well. So thank you.